I moved to Mississippi 3 years ago. Didn't plan on coming to Mississippi. Wasn't a destination spot for me. But I decided to teach at Ole Miss, and I teach journalism. And I was taking students into the Delta for a depth reporting class. And I saw these fields of cotton. Looks like rows of popcorn. I've never seen them before. I wanted to pick up the phone and call my grandmother and say, "You're not going to believe what I'm seeing." It reminded me of my childhood of visiting her people in South Carolina. I couldn't pick up the phone and call her. She passed away 20 years ago. I bet some of you in this audience and people watching will understand the pain of losing a loved one, because no matter how much time goes by, you still remember, you still love them, you still miss them. Those are my grandparents. They raised me. I was listening to her talk about her grandmother saying covering herself. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I wasn't allowed to date. I spent so much time arguing with her about rules that it didn't take the time to get to know her. If I close my eyes, I can still see the color of her nail polish. It was a sienna brown by Revlon. I can still smell her perfume, and I can hear the way she called my name, but it's not the same because I can't hear her voice. As a journalist and as a granddaughter, the one regret that I have is that I didn't record her and I didn't photograph her. That time doesn't come back. It's been 20 years and I still miss her. And so I'm driving in the Delta and I'm thinking, I can record other people's grandmothers. I have these skills. I'm a trained photographer. I didn't know anyone. I reached out to one pastor who reached out to another. I had 19 pastors helping me. No grants, no sponsorships, $50 here, $100 there. It took me 9 months. I drove 6,000 miles, photographed 54 women, took 7,000 photographs, and I have 240 hours of raw audio. I have my own personal history lesson. But it doesn't do me any good to have this and not share it. The New York Times heard about this and wrote an article. Southern Living heard about it and wrote an article. I wasn't even finished, didn't have an agent, didn't have a publisher. And I tell my students, follow your passion. When I was younger, CBS Sunday Morning was my favorite show, and I loved Steve Hartman. He used to throw a dart on a map. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And he would go to that town, and he would pick up the phone book, and he would pick a name. And his idea was everyone has a story. Everyone does have a story. Delta Jules, the cover woman, I'm going to talk about her in a minute. She's from Mound Bayou, Mississippi. And what you need to know about Mound Bayou is the first all-black town in Mississippi formed by former slaves in the 1800s. Booker T. Washington used to go there. President Roosevelt called it the jewel of the Delta, hence the name of my book, Delta Jules. And I meet incredible women. We have these devices, and I've heard people talk about that, and we're always on these devices. But I decided that I wanted to be a granddaughter and learn from these women, my grandmother's contemporaries. And people say, why did you go to the Mississippi Delta? Your grandmother wasn't even from Mississippi. They were her contemporaries. I wanted to represent a demographic that is often overlooked by the media, and I should know because I covered many events for 12 years as a photojournalist and as an editor. They're often overlooked. There are stereotypes in the Delta, and I wanted to show beautiful black women just like my grandmother. I meet Mrs. Bearden, and I learn a love story. And I tell my students, you have to be inquisitive, you have to ask questions, you have to follow up. I'm a photographer. I'm used to going in and photographing an event. We like the verb of things. But I put the camera down, I put the recorder on, and I made eye contact with them, and I listened. Mrs. Bearden was a student at Tuskegee Institute. She met her husband, World War II veteran, Captain Bearden. He was getting his second master's degree. And I started asking questions, and it was a nice story, but when I started digging deeper, she said, let me tell you about my husband and his character. He used to cut grass on a plantation in the Delta. He noticed that white women wore wedding rings and black women didn't, probably because they couldn't afford it. And at age 14, he decided that he was going to save all his change so that when he met his wife, He would buy her a wedding ring. 14 years, he saved his money. He married her homecoming weekend at Tuskegee Institute. They were married 56 years, and she had that ring until the 50th when he bought her a bigger diamond. Mrs. Campbell lives in Mount Bayou. She's 90. She'll be 91 next month. I love her. I said, Miss Campbell, I have a girl crush on you. She said, I have a girl crush on you too. What I love about Miss Campbell is she loves our president so much that she took her grandchildren's pictures off the wall and hung up his. The last time I counted, it was 12 pictures. I will be presenting my oral history at the Smithsonian Anacostia in March. She's coming with me. I'm trying really hard to get her to meet President Obama. I think she would pass out if that happened. Her grandchildren are not thrilled that their pictures are off the wall for his, I might add. Miss Lily Jackson, that name may not mean anything to you. It took me 4 months to get her to talk to me. I can't even tell you how many phone calls and visits to her home in Tutwiler, Mississippi. Her husband was the funeral home director who prepared Emmett Till's body. She talked about him preparing his mutilated body and putting him on a train to send to his mother in Chicago. But then she starts talking to me, and she says, Tutwiler was deserted after that. My friends were gone. You couldn't find a suitcase anywhere. People figured if they did that to Emmett Till, they would do that to their boys. They picked up their cotton sacks and filled the belongings of everything they could fit in a cotton sack and left. The town hasn't been the same since. I might add, I went to see her on my birthday, and she said, I'm Lisa. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, your hips are getting a little thicker. I said, thank you for noticing. She said, you're welcome. Miss Moore, listen to these numbers. 15 children, 145 grandchildren. Yes, I said 145. 33 great-grands, 23 great-greats, and 15 great-great-greats. When I go to interview her, there are about 25 people in her house. And when you're collecting audio, you need quiet. I didn't get quiet. Microphones are going, microwaves, scanners, children running up and down the hall, cell phones, TV, air conditioning, fan. I was like, I'm screwed. I'm there at her house for 3 hours, and I tell my students, you gotta dig deep, gotta stay with the story. If you feel it, you gotta go with it. After an hour, I have nothing, and her grandson says, Medea, Grandma, did you tell her about the woman you pulled out of church and punched? I'm sorry, what? Ms. Moore, you holding out on me? She said, You see her lips poked out. My job is to study. I study people. I waited till she did that. She was married 49 years, and she's in church this day. And a woman is behind her talking about how fine her husband is. She drags her out of church, and the woman says, well, I didn't know that was your husband. She said, but I meant what I said. And she said, well, I mean what I'm fitting to do. Punched her between the eyes and knocked her out. Her mother comes out of the church and says, Velma, you know you're wrong. She said, Mom, I ain't wrong. I didn't hit her in the church. I hit her outside the church. But here's the power of oral history. My lesson is we take pictures of our kids. We take pictures of our cats and our dogs. I love my kitty cat. We take pictures of our food, right? Do we photograph our elders? If your loved one passed away, God forbid, tomorrow, would you have their voice recorded? The power of oral history, the power of audio is strong. This is what she says, and here I'm typing their words, and I'm listening with my earbuds because I'm too broke to get it transcribed, right? So I'm listening, and I'm listening, and I'm listening, and she says, my love was deep down. I reckon because I loved his style. I loved his style, and he was wild about mine. And I wouldn't say how my style was to him, but I knew I was cute. Everybody would say to me, you is one pretty young lady. But when he told me, I knew I was. That made me feel really, really good. He's gone now, but I'm still Miss Moore. And when I'm dead and gone, I'll still be Miss Moore. I'm a writer and I'm a photographer. I can't write that. The power of her words. Mrs. Evers. Took me 9 months to get her. They say the best things are worth waiting for, and she was. I'm sitting in her office and I'm waiting for her, and she comes in and she says, I only have an hour and I'm tired. She goes on autopilot and she talks about Medgar Evers, her husband, her beloved husband, and how he was killed in their driveway. And I want to hear her. I want to hear anything she has to say, but I'm not there for that. I'm there for her because it's about the glory for the women in my book. And I said, but Mrs. Evers, you were raised by your grandmother too. We're one granddaughter sitting down with another. Tell me a memory that takes you back. And she says, my grandmother was a school teacher. She quit when I was born. She decided she was going to raise me. When I got older, she decided to be a cook and a housekeeper for a white family. And they used to give her all this delicious food to give to me. Gave me the best clothes from their daughter. I had a mink coat when I was 13, didn't know what it was. But I grew weary of wearing that girl's clothes. I wanted my own. Her grandmother said, but baby sis, that's what they called her, I don't have the money to buy you clothes like this. She said, I don't care what kind of clothes, I want my own. I was tired of wearing clothes from the White House. So, photograph your elders, don't be like me. I wish I could hear my grandmother's voice one more time. So we don't work alone, right? We have to pay it forward. So I decided that I was going to start a nonprofit, and I just got it approved by the IRS. Whew, months. I want our younger generation to record their elders and write an essay about it for college scholarships. Got to build the bridge with the younger and the older and let them know where they came from and let them know who's sitting at that table next to them. And what I want to do now, because their voices are much more powerful than mine, is I want to play the audio of one woman. She was the first Black to register to vote. Her husband carried a .38 in his pocket.
The white people had got started talking about they wasn't going to let the Negroes vote. And my husband said, well, I can't read as good as you, but I'm going to put you on the front line. We got up that next day and we got dressed. He put the overalls on, top of the pants. He put that .38 in his pocket. He said, I'm going to pop. I don't want to come out and stick his head and look at you. And I said, all right, I'm brave. Those people were working in those offices. Every one of them came out in the hall and stuck their head out looking. Who is that going down through there? We were walking side by side. We went on in there. He asked me, did I know the Constitution of the United States? I sit there and I worried with that stuff and looking at it. But I got rich. We came on out. When we came out of there and started back down the street, all those white folks was up in those offices, still was looking. They stood at the door till they wondered what we were doing in there. And my husband still was walking. Me and him were walking together. He said, I'm going to open the door for you, and they give me a chance. I'm going to look up. So he walked around and opened the door for me like I was somebody.
The power of their voice. 240 hours of raw audio. I'm not going to stop. My next project is Cotton Across the South. Blacks, white, male, female. One story at a time, one archive at a time. Don't be like me. My friend Susan Glisson told me that there's a quote that says, when an elderly person dies, a library burns down with it. I don't want any more libraries to burn down. Thank you.